right, we are live. Good morning. Well, it's good
Hello.
afternoon for you because you're out in Ohio, correct?
Yes, I
It's,
am
it's
at this
noontime for
time.
you. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for
Yes.
us out here. Welcome to the Real Talk Show. We're looking forward to getting to know you a little bit more. Let me get my
Oh,
mic
yes,
fixed
yes,
here. Let me get my mic fixed. There we go. We're good. All
yes.
right. All right, guys. Well, today I've got a guest. We've got to know Kaz a little bit more. We got to work out a little bit together and know each other here for the last couple months. And this is Kas Spirits, and I'm going to give you guys a little insight of him, and he's going to give us a little bit of backstory about where he's from and what he does. So, with no further ado, we're live, and let's get started. Kas, why don't we
Yes.
start first? Where you're, um, where you're at currently, okay, and
Yes.
about your wife, and you're married, and stuff like that. So let's why don't you go ahead and give us some feedback on that.
Okay, I'm currently located in Akron, Ohio at this time. I have been in China, where I was in China, and this is where I met my wife. She's Han from mainland China, located in Chengdu. This is the west of China, near Tibetan area. So it's about Midwest in inside of mainland China.
Mm, mm.
Yes.
And so the where so let's start where you were. Where were you born now? Were you born here in the United States? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, I was. Yes, I was born in Buffalo, New York, but I traveled around to different parts of Western New York. So I lived in Rochester, East Aurora, different parts of Western New York, where I was able to meet a variety of different people.
Uh-huh. So
Yes.
did you live with mom and dad and they traveled, or how did that work?
Yes. Yes, we moved around a lot because my mother was a nurse at the time, so she took different jobs in different hospitals. So this is
Ah,
where I relocated to different parts of New York, and I was able to meet different martial artists. Since I was a youth, a young child, I loved martial arts, and I grew up around martial artists.
and so when mom moved, so you'd have to, you'd find a different studio or something where each place that you'd go as mom moved around doing her nursing. I didn't know
Yes.
that about mom. Is mom still with us? Is your mom still with us?
Yes, she is at this time. She's not working. She's
Uh-huh.
basically retired. Um,
Retired now. Good.
yes. But during that time when we moved around, I went to different studios. I always tried to learn as much as I could in the cities I was at. So maybe I would stay in a place for maybe 3 months, uh, 4 months, and then move to another location. This is when I was just around like 6 to maybe 12 years old around this
Mm-hmm.
time. Yeah, moved a lot.
Gotcha. So did what? Well, and throughout your, what's your best childhood memory of that? What studio do you remember the most, or what instructor do you remember the most from then?
Um, I would say in Shotokan and Ishinru teacher Carlos in Buffalo, New York. He was really good, a very educated man. And he could tell you the insights of how to do certain kicks properly, how you switch your hips over to make your kicks align properly to hit the opponent. This way,
Uh,
you won't just be throwing kicks randomly. You would throw them accurately when you kick at an opponent, and the
Interesting.
timing of it. Yes.
Interesting. So I don't know. Some people may not even know this about me, but you know that Ishinru is what I started in before I
Oh,
did Tong Sado. Yeah. And
wow.
and how I learned it was where I started. Believe it or
Mhm.
not, I was like Al Bundy. I was a shoe salesman when I
Yeah.
was young. I worked in the
Yes.
stock room, and then it was called Lead Shoes. And that particular manager named John Butler was an Ishinru black belt,
Oh.
and
Hmm.
he's the one I started training in his garage, and that's really kind of what started me on the martial arts world. To hear Ishinru, I mean, that was such a long time ago, but that's where it all kind of started for me too. Is where I first started, and then of course I found my instructor in in Tong Sado. So, and that's Ishinryu. You just don't hear it very often anymore. It's not
No,
something around here that much anymore, anyway. So,
no,
uh,
it's slowly fading away. But the principles of basically all martial arts, when you see people who study and who actually can fight, you would see that they have some type of background in karate, most likely,
hmm
because of the hard style, especially the Okinawan style. It's very hard, and the kicks are very solid. So it is a good foundation to start off with.
yeah,
Uh,
I think you're right about that. I think that uh, any kind of you know uh,
mhm.
traditional martial arts, I think, is a really good foundation anyway.
Yes,
So I don't disagree with that. So let's talk about if so you look at let's talk about your fitness journey before we talk about
yes,
your martial arts journey. I mean,
yes.
do you avidly lift weights? Is it mostly martial arts type workout? Do you have genetics, or how'd that
Um,
come about?
yes, I started training actually when I was 3 years old. So I would be running a lot. I had a lot of energy as a child, and then slowly I was around power lifters, bodybuilders. I was in this type of environment since I was a child, uh, because my mother used to do exercise as well. Even when she was pregnant, she was running with me in her stomach. so so I basically was training before I was even born into this world.
Yeah.
So,
So mom has a background in doing in
yes,
physical
she
fitness anyway. Then correct.
yes, and that's how I started. So when I was young, I used to be put around bodybuilders and power lifters to teach me how to do training, like they say, do isometrics workouts, dynamic strength to
Uh huh.
enhance your core, basically, because that is very fundamental for any human being. Like besides just the overall power of your muscles, you need a strong core,
hmm
and if you take this strong core and then you put it into a martial arts, you would be able to do more. So basically, I was always interested in the fitness aspect,
Right.
running, uh, bodybuilding, powerlifting, anything to basically be versatile to improve myself. I think it's important. Just overall health is important.
So do you still lift today? Are you still lifting?
Yes, but not often. Because I learned that if you take, like, let's say it's good to lift. If it depends on what you do. Like example, if you are in a fight, let's say you're a fighter, I wouldn't recommend lifting too much, because if you take on a bodybuilder's mentality and approach fighting, it wouldn't be a proper thing. You wouldn't be able to last so long, because the mentality for lifting weights is totally different than for fighting. But if you are just a power lifter and you seek power, you seek personal growth within yourself, you can tally up how far you have grown by the number of weights you lift, or
hmm
the number of repetitions. But in fighting, it's harder to calculate this. You only can calculate your progress by who you fight, or who you spar, or who you are training with.
Right. Well, that's true. I agree with
Yes.
that. I mean, I've been lifting weights for a long time, and you know, I'm an old
Yes.
guy now, but I still push those weights around.
Oh yes, yes.
I enjoy it because it kind of clears my head. You know what I
Oh
mean? I
yes.
I like the banging. I like to hear the weights clang, and I like all that. So,
Yeah, it's good for
it
therapy.
yes, it is. It is.
So,
There's two things good for therapy: choking someone out and
yes,
lifting weights. So those are really good therapy
I
for
agree with
me.
that.
So
Definitely.
let's because I've got some other questions on as you going on through your as you continue this journey. So you're a young boy, and
Yes.
then you have y- you know did you move around in high school too, or were you pretty well set in high school?
Yes. And when I went to high school, I moved around as well. And during that time, they had like a wrestling team inside the high school. They had football teams inside of this high school. It was located inside of East Aurora at this time, and I was studying. I was wanted to pursue martial arts more, and
Uh-huh.
this is where the idea of being sent overseas to study came uh, during the high school years. So during my time here, I learned that maybe I would have a better influence or learn better things as far as with the culture if I went to school overseas. So my mother helped me set this up, and I was able to get inside of a program to be an international transfer student inside
Ah.
of Japan, where I was able to learn about the culture, the language, the values, and of course, karate and
Mhm.
the history behind everything.
So that happened when when now did you play any high school sports at all? Did you wrestle on the wrestle team or not?
I played a little bit of sports. I
Yeah.
played some football. They told me to
Uh-huh.
get on the football team. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't something that I really wanted to do. It was just something extra because it's athleticism. So
Right.
it was good to for the running, for the training. You know, you hit each other like the weights you
Mhm.
talked about, the clinging, and so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, football pads hitting each other. And
Yeah.
it was a good years. You know, I met people who basically wanted to accomplish things in their area, but my heart was always towards the martial arts.
Yes. Yes, I
Yes.
played football in high school too.
Oh,
I
okay. Yes.
yeah.
I
So I
guess a
know what
lot of
that's kind.
people. Yeah, a lot of
I
people
that's
try that.
yeah. Yeah, that's that helmet therapy was always good
Yes.
for sure. It was a little
Yes.
bit different back in when I was in school, that was back in I'd say I played in 1978 and 79 and
Mm.
80. That's back. I guess I'm aging, telling you my age now, but um,
Okay.
that's so that's yeah, that was fun. So no wrestling though, right? I wished I would have
Yes.
done high school wrestling. Did you wrestle
Yes,
in
I did.
school? Did
Yes,
you?
I wrestled too, but it wasn't for a long time, and I didn't really take it to a professional level at all. It
Uh
was
huh.
just for basically training and practice. You know, because we all grew up. Well, a lot of people grew up on the WWE, WWF. You know,
That's right.
so
That's correct. Yes, we
yeah.
did. Yes, we
So
did. That we were in the Hulk Hogan era. The '80s wrestling was nothing better, man. And then the
yes,
'90s cruised in, and yes, we all did the WWE
you know,
for
the
sure.
Ultimate Warrior, Undertaker, all of these people, they were a
Hmm.
lot of inspiration to become stronger. You know, Lex Luger. You know, I could
Hmm.
name so many wrestlers. So
Yeah,
it was part of what pushed me to
yeah,
train harder, train more. It was good entertainment, but you know that the wrestlers are very physically capable of doing what they do. So I
Y-
respect wrestling a lot.
yeah. Uh, they're definitely athletes. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff
Absolutely.
they do, strong. It was
Yes.
good. Yeah, that was good. That's good to know. So 18 comes around. So you get into an international planning. The first place you go is Japan. So
Yes.
let's now how what kind of when you left and
Yes.
you arrived in Japan. So did you stay with another family there? Is that did a
Yes.
family take you in?
Yes. It was a host family. So
A
when
host
you
family.
yes,
Hmm.
when you go become an international transfer student, you get a host family. So this host family would take care of you during your first years or so if you are there during your schooling period. And then if you want to stay longer, you could get your own place, your own apartment, and branch out from that point
Uh-huh.
on. Yes.
And is that what you did?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so does that mean that you went to school there
Yes.
in Japan? This is where you started, right? You went to
Yes.
school and then so did you learn Japanese while you're there?
Yes. Yes, I can speak Japanese. Nihongo
And
wakarimasu.
uh
Hmm.
and so I guess that's how you get immersed in the culture, right? So
Yes.
you've learned Japanese and then did you were you working at the time too? Did you
No,
get
no,
yourself a job?
not at that time. When I first went there, it was like a culture shock because it's
Mhm.
everything like the way things work in America. it functions totally different overseas when you are in Japan and other countries. Like the society thinks very differently. Just to give you one example of that, in Japan, they do not let people show too much emotion per se. You know, like in
Uh-huh.
America, you can just be like, if you're sad, you cry. If you're angry, you show it, and this is very obvious. But in Japan, when you show emotion too much, it's a sign of weakness. So it's just like a cultural things, like little things like that is very hard to adjust when you come from America and you're changing your uh, your living quarters.
Uh-huh.
So it is a culture shock. And then after adjusting, I was able to run across different martial artists, and this is where I met my first real influence in martial arts when I was over in Japan, named Mr. Sato. He's very open-minded because he lived in Thailand and he was doing Thai boxing, but his origin of his training was Shotokan karate. So
Mm-mm.
when he met me and I went to over to him and his gym, uh, we worked the pads. I showed him what I learned in America, and from then on, he took me in like wholeheartedly, and it was really great during the time.
How long were you with him?
For about 4 to 5 years.
4 to 5
Yes,
years.
yes. And
So,
because at that time, like we worked out, well, he was showing me, instructing me on what to do, and
mhm.
I earned a black belt by him. But he happened to get cancer, and he passed away during that time.
Oh,
So
wow. So you
that's
lost your instructor to cancer. Man,
yes,
that sucks.
yes. But he was very open minded. He showed me about the principles, how to because he fought in Thailand. So he tried to use karate to fight against the Thai, and he learned the weaknesses, like why it couldn't work against Thai boxing at that time for himself. So he was telling me these weaknesses, how the traditional parts are very good if you can apply them and mix them up in a variety of ways, and then you are able to fight different styles. And this
So
is what I
you
learned from him. Yes.
interesting. So you had an instructor
Yes,
that went and looked at real fighting to see how
yes,
to apply that so to make his martial arts even better for
yes,
from a fighting perspective.
right.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's interesting. That that's
Yes,
uh that's definitely the mark of a good instructor for sure.
yes, because
You
from
know.
his experience when he first went to Thailand, he tried to fight the Thai in traditional karate, and he didn't pass all of his
Mm.
things, but slowly he stayed there and he adjusted and he got better and better. So he was thinking, if I take a person with a better physical build and they can apply the experience that I had, like explaining about how to block the guard, how to defend against low kicks properly. This would be better for that person to basically defend themselves and be able to defeat a Thai boxer with hand to
Mhm.
hand combat. So
Yeah,
this
that's
was his thought.
super super interesting. So let's talk more about that Japan because I want to talk about that culture
Yes,
and training with somebody from Japan, okay? Because this
yes,
that portion of it intrigues me. So you're first of all you're a young guy, right? I
yes.
mean, how old are you now, Kaz?
Yes, right now I'm 34. It's
So
hard for me to really keep track of my age. Yes,
yeah. Well, wait till you're my age and you don't want to, and then you're not going to want to keep track of it. Uh,
yes,
so when so you're a young man at 18 now, you're in this and you have this culture shock. And
yes.
that's interesting that you say, what else did you learn from the Japanese people? Because, I have my drum instructor. I play taiko
Oh
drum. I don't know if you know that or not.
no.
And he's from, he lives in Japan now. And
Okay.
so, and that's where he is. So I know that there's definitely a different in their culture.
Yes.
And tell me what else that you see over there. I understand. You tell me you live there, so you tell me if this is true. I understand that it's they keep their place much cleaner.
Yes.
Uh,
Hmm.
the respect of the elders is something held in high regards. Did you see all
Yes.
that?
Absolutely. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
So it's just
After
go ahead.
Yes, after every workout, you have to clean the dojo. This is very essential. You can't just work out and then leave because you need to treat your martial arts area, well, your training area. I think this is good for bodybuilders, powerlifters too. Treat it with respect, like a temple. So
Hmm.
this is kind of your temple in a way because this is where you grow, this is where you get your spirituality from. So this is how they view the dojo. And the elders are always respected because of their experience through life. And basically, when you're a child, you make a lot of mistakes, you do things that you probably will regret later, and the elders are there to basically guide you in the
Hmm.
right direction. So they always deserve a lot of respect. Yes.
So so is public transportation something that is used quite often in Japan?
Oh,
Is
yes,
yes. So
absolutely.
you see here, right, in America, especially,
Hmm.
today, where an
Yes,
elderly would get on a mass transit or something like that, and nobody even offers them a seat. You know what I mean? Do you
yes.
see that as a different culture there? For sure.
Uh, Absolutely. Because in Japan, if you see an elderly, people would just fly up just to let them sit down. Because they think, hey, I'm young, I can stand. This older person, let them sit down. So they show
Uh-huh.
a lot of respect. And public transportation is used by all kinds of people, no matter your status in society. So you can see millionaires, business owners, famous people catching public transportation. You would never see that in America.
No, that you're not gonna see that, no. No,
Yes.
it's just yeah, it's a different animal when you do public transportation out here.
Yes.
Well, in California, at least, I don't know. I hear that I mean, New York is probably something that's a little bit different. You were there, people almost have to use their public transportation out there, but, it's still just a
Absolutely.
you know, looking at, 'cause the culture, out there, and then so when tell me how you went about learning language and stuff. Were you just immersed with that family? Did you learn it in school? Did you learn it by just being there?
Yes, in all of those ways. When I first arrived, the host family that I had, they knew just a little bit of English, and since I came, I said, I need to dedicate my heart and soul to improving since I'm here. But at first, I didn't think like this. When I first arrived, I thought, I need to get back to America. So that's the first thing I thought. I said, how can I adjust different type of food? The way you have to treat and talk to people is a lot different. You have to show a lot of respect. Every time you speak to someone, you take your shoes off before you enter the house. It's a lot to just adjust to. And later, I put my heart and soul into just learning, and even if I made mistakes, I kept trying because I learned that you can't really be perfect when you are learning something new. Like you always start off stumbling, no matter who you are. If I take the greatest scientist, Einstein, when he first started off, you can't know everything in the beginning, so you always start fumbling and stumbling around. So I figured, let me speak, let me make mistakes as much as possible, and then slowly they will be fixed, and I'll be able to communicate better. And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's great. So I see that. So even though when you first got there, you were like, man, I gotta. This is
Yes.
like super culture shock, right? And
Yes.
what you have to learn. What do you say? I mean, obviously, we're pretty spoiled here in America. I'm sure you'd agree, correct?
Uh, yes, it's a lot. How can I say? The society is a lot easier. Example: when I was in Japan back in during that time in the early 2000s, um, basically no foreigner could get a job outside of just teaching their native language. This is how they operated. So eventually, I taught part time in schools to earn a little extra money. They limited your career, well, your job. If you went to work, you couldn't work any jobs that a Japanese could do themselves. So they limit you to just an English area. Or if you're from France, you only could teach French. So if
Uh,
you're from Germany, you only can teach German. So based upon the country you're from, that's the only language you could teach. And in America, you always have opportunity. If you're from the bottom, it is possible to rise to the top. So, but in those type of societies, they lean towards more of the native people, and I understand it. But here in America, that's why I say it's a very diverse culture, and it's when I came back from overseas, I had to adjust again because the mentality is a little bit different too. Like in Japan, if you are too aggressive, that can be seen as a negative sign. But in America, it's perfect. You should be aggressive towards pursuing goals. So you know
I'd be known as very aggressive over there. That's maybe that's where I should go to mellow out. That's what I'm thinking.
yes,
Uh, that's interesting. I see. We live here in America, so we have the spoils of America, and for all lack of purposes, we're just spoiled brats as it is. And it's not until you go to another country or really see that you get to go, wow, how blessed am I that I live in this type of a country where I can wake up
yes,
and I can start a business and I
yes,
can I can do what I want to do. Uh,
yes,
uh, and just how precious freedom is, especially when you're hearing, um, you know, Japan, they take care of their own, right? If you're a
absolutely.
foreigner, that then it's, I guess, and that's where you have to have a country that has some kind of a balance. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
yeah, it's something to hear that. You know what I mean? So so Mr. Sato, so you're there. How long were you there?
Yes, I was in Japan for a total of 7 years.
Seven
Yeah.
years, and then did you stay after he passed away, or did you? Is that when
Uh,
you decided to leave?
yes, that's when I decided to leave because I felt as if it was no one else there, basically.
Uh
And
huh.
it's some side information was Mr. Sato was connected to an organization called K1. I know a lot of people don't really know about this organization. Maybe they have quite a few fighters. There was Bakwa fought there. Who else? Alistair Overeem fought inside of K1. Bob Sapp fought inside of K1. And Sato was connected to these people. And his idea was, hey, I taught you these principles. You should go inside of the K1. So he was trying to set this up for me. And then in the meantime, that's when he fell ill with cancer. And it just came like within a few weeks. And
Uh,
it was just like he couldn't talk, he couldn't move. It just overwhelmed him. And I saw him in the hospital. I talked to him, and then he just passed away. But I made a promise that I would do my best and keep moving forward and spread what I know and try my best to improve and keep the goals alive. So
yeah.
if Mr. Sato was alive during this time, most likely I would have already been in K1 fighting.
Uh
So
huh. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, K1 is something known here in America pretty
Oh,
much.
okay. Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Good.
I mean, it's brutal over. It's a brutal sport, and you're right about Overstein and all those guys that came from there. These guys are monsters that were fighting back at the
Oh,
time. You know what I
yes.
mean?
The
So
striking. Hmm.
yes, their striking was just absolutely brutal, and
Yes.
and
That's right.
that's, I believe that when you're hitting K1s and you're doing that kind of fighting, and then you get into somebody that has some really good grappling. This is where MMA. This is how MMA comes about. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's
And
right.
so so that's good. So you end up leaving. Now listen, how many? Tell me about a typical day in Sato. Did he have a home type studio dojo,
Uh,
or did he have a dojo that he had a lot of students in, like what I have?
Uh, it was a gym set up to where the front part was more traditional and the back part was more of a Muay Thai setting. So
Mhm.
he had both because of his background. So
Right.
he tried to mix both. So if someone wanted to come in and say, "Hey, let me be traditional," you can go to the front and learn with that sensei who's there, or practice your katas, focus on your traditional form. If you want to go into the fighting aspect, the stand-up game, then you would go to the back of this dojo, train with the bags, pads, work on your techniques, your form, these kinds of things. So
Wow,
every
that's
yes,
awesome.
he mixed them together because he had a mixed background.
Mhm.
And usually in Japan, they never do things like that. You can always see they're very traditional. Like if you see a karate school, the dojo is set in tradition, like wooden floors. You have the scrolls, the background, these kinds of things. You have your gis, but Sato broke from tradition a little bit, and I was
Mhm.
the only foreigner that he really had with him, but he put a lot of effort into giving me the knowledge that he had.
Yeah, that's great. That's an awesome story. Sound like a really just a good solid, solid dude that
Yes,
had an open mind for, allowing his students, saw weaknesses in a game. I think just
yes,
like what what all good instructors do, and
yes.
say, okay, how do we improve here? How do we put this into the next level? What do we do with that? And then it's guns. Well, that's awesome. So let's talk about, so what happens is, what made you decide then after that that you're going to go to China? What made you decide that?
During that time, it's like my world crumbled in Japan, and I thought I need to continue to pursue martial arts, like all different aspects of martial arts. And I thought the next, because China was like the next door neighbor. So I figured, let me go over to China to basically clear my mind, clear my soul, and start fresh. It was like a new beginning for me. Like, the monks, when monks start fresh in life, because they commit so many sins, they shave their hair bald. This is a
Uh-huh.
part of it. So you shave your hair off. So my shaving was changing the country I was in. That
I
was
see.
me starting fresh,
Hmm.
and that's when I went over to Chengdu, actually. So, and I went there. It's the home of the pandas. People love the pandas
Right.
over there, but they also study Tai Chi and Qi Gong over there. It's like the center, so you get the real culture. If you go around the coastal lines, you get more of a business part of China, like the Beijing, Shanghai, you know, uh, Guangdong. This is more of a business empire over there. That place.
Mhm. So
Yes.
how were you taken in? So are you going in there still with American status? Is that correct? Is
Yes.
it? s-
Absolutely.
Did you find a family there then? Also, is that how you did it, or because you're kind of older now? So how does that work?
Right. Yeah, so I went over there, and the currency, if you look at the currency, it's a lot easier. Well, just to get stable inside of China. So the money that I did earn from Japan, it was used in China to get me an apartment. And when I first went to China, I realized it was different than living in Japan. The reason why, because China has only been open to foreigners for maybe 25 years or so. It's
Mm,
not a long history like Japanese. So Japanese, they're really used to seeing foreigners. It's like obvious, like, okay, yeah, foreigners, we know, Italians, Americans, but in China, it's not so. It's not the same situation. So it's easy to go to China and people just look at you and stare like, what, foreigner at this time. So it was very rare, when I went. So you get people stare at you, want to know what country you're from and more about your background, these things. So
Well,
Yes.
where what is your nationality? What is your nationality, Cause?
Yes, I come from a mixed background. My mother's mixed, and my father, he passed away when I was a baby, so I never met my father
Mm,
at all. But my mother's mixed. She has a Cherokee. She has African American. She has United Kingdom's blood, UK,
uh-huh.
Irish, Hawaiian. So
So
multiple.
so definitely when you're walking around, it's a definitely different look. So uh, people look at you as
Yeah.
when and how are you treated in the beginning with that? How was that? How were you looked at?
And the
Accepted or talked
um,
about? You know.
Yes, in the beginning, they basically uh, they treated me well, with a lot of hospitality. But they wanted to know more about me and my background because in China, since it's so isolated, they focus more on their own culture per se. So everything is very culture. Like some conversations are very strict, where you can't talk about them out in the open, like political things. And these things you have to adjust to in China when you go. Like some
Mm,
things you just cannot talk about in China. They're very open. They wanted to teach me about their culture and what they do, like the food, the traditions, the language, these things they wanted to share. And it was hard for them to basically know my background, where I came from. So they had to kind of like guess.
interesting. So did you learn their language too?
Yes, I know a bit of Chinese.
Yes.
I'm not as good in Chinese as I
In
am in
in
Japanese.
Japanese.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's quite those are quite 2 languages to know. How many languages do you speak? Do you speak those 3, or do you even
Yes.
have more? Or is that
Yes.
those are the 3 that you speak? Yeah.
Yes. The
A
main
and,
ones, and I'm studying German now, so I'm trying to improve that.
uh, they say that once you can, you speak another language, learning another language is a little bit easier, but I tried to learn Spanish in school and,
Oh.
all I can do is tell you the bad words of it. So,
Yes.
that's about the extent of that. So,
Yes.
that's always been impressive to me anyway. One of my
Yes.
black belts here in Krav, he was in the military and he's a
Oh.
linguist. He speaks several languages himself too. And it's always been amazing what when you can do that. So I think that
Yes.
that's just something awesome that
Yes.
you're able to have. So,
Be-
well,
because
what? Go ahead.
mhm. Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
when you are basically learning, like when I was in Japan, they can't truly express themselves, like unless you speak in their language. Then they can basically speak from their heart. And this is what pushed me, because if you really, really want to know about the culture, you have to kind of know the language in some kind of way, because
Mhm.
the meaning behind some things, it can have a different meaning behind it. So that's why I press to learn the language of that culture, and especially Japanese and the Chinese aspect too.
Yeah, that's I think that's true. I think that's pretty much true in anything we do, right? We have to immerse ourselves into whatever it is we do, whether it's a school, whether it's this, you have to immerse yourself. I think that's a great life lesson right there in itself. So,
Yeah.
who did you find for instructor wise for yourself there? Who'd you go seek out? What'd you go do?
Yes, when I first started training, they have Tai Chi everywhere. So basically, when I was there, I said, "Hey, I just want to go around. They have Tai Chi on the streets that you can go to. Like it's everywhere inside of Chengdu." And that's why I first started. I said, "Hey, let me learn in some of these movements and figure out how they move and the energy behind it." And that's why I started off just learning on the streets at first, and then
Uh,
later on, as time passed, I went out to deep into the mountains, where I learned out there. Mr. Chen was out there, and it became basically more. I took it serious at this time. In the beginning, it was just like, oh, I'm learning, health purposes, the movements. But then I took it serious when you meet a person that dedicates their life and soul to something, then you take the art seriously. And
Uh-huh.
that's when I started to say, hey, I need to really put my heart and soul into this, like Mr. Chen has done. And that's when I began to study and learn about the breathing, the movements. And if if I could incorporate this is where I started to think myself, if I can incorporate this type of breathing and this type of movement into the knowledge that I had from Mr. Sato, it would make things it would improve me as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there's the healing side of martial arts too,
Yes.
the Qi Gong and stuff like that. Is that
Yes.
more more of what you were studying there? Is that what you were looking at?
Yes, the meditation part,
Mm-hmm.
because this is very important. Because usually, no matter what situation people get into, whether it's taking a test, it's a fight, maybe they have their mind is very clouded by information. They heard bad news, they heard good news. Um, you need to be able to clear your mind so you can think very clearly about what to do next and when to do something. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the part of it that I learned. So that aspect of it, the Zen part, the meditation part was very essential. And then you learn how to breathe properly, because most people breathe and they breathe from their chest, and you are
Uh-huh.
actually supposed to breathe from your lower abdomen. So
Yes.
this helps you gather power.
Yeah, that's the other side of martial arts for sure. The that there is a combat side and there's the other side.
Yes,
You know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely understand that part of it is. So this is
yes,
interesting to me. Is getting to know you a little bit more now on what you did. So, and you met your wife in the meantime in there. Is that correct? How long you been married now?
yes. For about maybe 8 years, something like this. Yes,
So you've been married for a while. So
yes.
you're an old married guy, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
I'm just waiting to show my gray hair soon.
Well, trust me when I say it will come. It will be coming. Uh,
Yes.
that is a promise. So
Yes.
let's talk about what we're doing together. So how we met is you met through John Vaverka,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
he said, he sent you to, um, he sent you
Yeah.
down to me, and that's where I met you. And
Yes.
you have this idea that I think that we're gonna, we've gone back and forth about to do, and
Yes.
you feel that you want to go through something called a 100 round type of kumite,
Yes.
which is more
Yes.
traditional
Yes.
type rules, traditional karate. Um,
Yes.
and we've decided that we're going to move forward with this 100 rounds. At first we were doing 100 men, but it's hard to find a lot of people to come in and do it, right? So we've
Yes.
chosen to go with 100 rounds, and
Yes.
that's what your goal is now. So let's talk about a little bit what your goal is with that.
Yes. I the 100 round kumite. I heard of this in my youth. I mean, when I first started doing martial arts, Carlos told me about it. I heard about it from various senseis, and it's just like no one has ever seen it, but you can watch videos on it and see it done, because it was mainly done overseas. It's been done in Europe, it's been done in Japan, but it hasn't been done in America. So this 100 rounds shows a person's skill, endurance, and determination to get through 100 different people, basically, or 100 rounds of combat. Um, and this part I wanted to do in America because um, one, it's never been done here. Two, I think it can be very beneficial, not just for me, but anyone who joins, you can get some kind of experience with
Mm-hmm.
actual combat in a different type of way, like stand up in your striking aspect.
Right.
So and this is the part where when I met Fumio, like Fumio Demura, me and him, when I returned back from America, I was introduced to Fumio Demura, and he was talking about, I told him about the principles that I learned from Sato, Mr. Chen inside of China. And I was showing Fumio techniques and working out at his dojo, and he was sharing different principles with me and explaining about the actual combat part, because Fumio Demura has fought in tournaments in Japan um,
Mm-hmm.
during his heyday. And me and him built a great relationship over time. And I told him about this 100-man kumite, and he thought it would be great to do because it can show you who you are, basically, as a martial artist.
Uh-huh.
Because during the time you have to use what you know in order to survive. It's not, it makes it a little bit more complicated, because back in the day they used to just have people just punch someone in the face, and you can end the match in like 1 second, like that. You know, you could
Right.
punch on. But if you erase that aspect that they have done now, you have to endure the whole time. So even if your leg is numb or you feel like it's going to fall off from being kicked by leg kicks, you have to continue on. And this shows your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they changed that. Yes.
Yes. That's and so this is where where you feel that you want to now that I've talked to you a little bit, I think this is part of where you want to help with your instructor's legacy, what he taught
Yes.
you, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And I guess to push yourself to see what this is going to be like for me to uh, go 100 rounds. You know what I mean? Yeah, a minute 30 each, and so that's a long time. And
Yes.
um, and to push yourself through something that we haven't done. And I think we spoke about this for a while now. How can we, because this is definitely not something that is even talked about here. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So, um,
Yes. Because usually when this happens, this kind of event happens, it's usually a closed event.
mm-hmm.
So you would take Kyokushin, and they'll basically fight each other within um, this kumite, and then it would be released to the public. So the way that we're doing now is more like an open call
Right,
to different people. So it's like you could have a Muay Thai background, you could have a Kung Fu background. It's more open and diverse, and this changes the game of how it's done. And
right,
here it's a lot of things behind the reason why it's not done mainly in America. One is the culture works a lot differently. So in Japan, it's very easy for people to get this done, because the whole dojo pushes them and say, okay, we're going to give you 50 men, 60 men, so you can go through your 100 rounds. And here, sometimes the dojo doesn't have 70 people that can fight or are willing to fight the whole 100 rounds, because it's a 2.5 hours of fighting in
right.
total for the person that's doing the challenge.
Correct. Yeah,
So
yeah. That's true. So, so we decided that we're gonna, you know, we're gonna take this on and move forward with it. And we thought that, like you said, there's a little bit different cultures here in both
yes,
places, but one thing that drives Americans is doing something for somebody else. You know what I mean?
yes, I agree.
It's just part of who they are,
Yes,
whether it's for our vets or police officers or whatever other charity that we deem that we want to use. And so we thought that this would be the way to go so that um, we can get people to come in and go a
yes,
minute and a half. And there is definitely a rule set, so everybody will know the rules before coming in. This isn't just we're going to come in and throw down, and whoever gets the shit beat out of them first is the winner.
yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
So so there is definitely some rules that are going in there. And So it's a more a stand up thing. It's a more from what I now that we've worked out
Mm,
together a little bit and stuff like that. It's definitely
mm.
a more stand up traditional karate point type tournaments. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yes,
Uh, and so with those rules, we stay within those rules, and people can go a minute and a half, but still,
yes,
even that pushing yourself for 2.5 hours is quite a feat in itself,
yes,
and when there's a purpose behind it, right?
yes,
Sometimes your purpose is I'm going to get through this. I have
yes,
something on then, and through my purpose, maybe we can help this group A, B, C, or D
yes,
with some donations and some
absolutely.
and honor, right? So you're going to
Yes,
honor yourself by going through this. We're going to honor vets or cops or
yes,
whatever charity we choose from that as a choosing as we start to get ready for this. Uh,
yes,
and then I think that's the way we're going to go, and I believe that we can have some success with this,
yes.
and uh, you know, I think it'll be, I don't know,
Yeah, it's a good way to go because it's more than just the fighting part of it because it's easy to just show skill and say okay let me do this and that, but it's a bigger purpose behind it. One is just honoring Mr. Sato and Fumio Demura for sharing
uh huh,
this the knowledge that they gave me. Second is the people who join can get actual experience behind this so they can grow as well. And the third aspect of this would be that it's for a higher purpose. You're giving back
hmm,
to society and the people that deserve it.
yeah,
Any charity involved, they deserve this. So we're all using our skills to give something back instead of
right,
just using it for a self purpose and saying,
yes.
"Hey, this is about me, only me." So you're giving something back. I think that's a spiritual development in itself.
I agree with you. I think that this is what being able to talk about it so people can have a better understanding because right, it can go either way to certain
Yes.
dojos, right? You're going to step into a dojo and say, "I need 100 men," and you're gonna have some animals come at you like,
Yes,
uh, "I want to eat you for lunch," and
absolutely.
right, and the purpose of behind what we're doing is I think you're right. I think it's a push, and I understand the push. Both my
Yes.
years, my two big times, right? When I turned 50 and when I turned 60. When I turned 50, I fought for 50 straight minutes, right? No rest, no
Yes.
nothing. That's what I wanted.
Good.
50 for 50. When I turned
Good.
60 last year, I did the same thing but was on the
Oh,
ground. I did all grappling for
okay.
60 minutes, right?
Wow.
And I think
Yes.
that you do this, to well, first of all, I did it just for myself to say
Hmm.
that okay, I survived 60 minutes. Now it's not like I didn't get there's a couple rounds that a little bit harder than others, as you start to get tired.
Absolutely.
And I'm a little older
Yes.
than you, but you getting tired, and I'm kind of more beat up. I got fake knee, and I've got
I see.
arthritis, and I've been hit in the head, God knows how many times. Um, but
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
so it was a mental challenge for me, and I believe this is a mental challenge for you.
Yes.
And I think you're the right. I said the same. The way I went through it also was this honors all those that have taught me, man. Okay,
Yes.
that
Hmm.
my instructors that have taught me, and
Yes.
and and to raise my see that let my students see and that hey, you can do this also. And
Yes.
so I think us being able to talk about it, Kaz, it make it a little bit easier for us to uh, promote, and
Yes.
now we have this here that we can now that we've talked about it, and people can see your background a little bit more
Yes.
and where this is coming from and where this now that you have a better understanding on hey, you know what, I'd like to be part of that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'd like to get in there with him for a minute and a half. I think that would be fun.
Yes.
And and then see what I can do and
Yes.
who can we help at the same time. I mean, you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the best way to go because if you do study martial arts, it is a good way to know where you are Because you are, when you study martial arts, no one is going to actually train to not be able to defend themselves, if you really think about it. Because the whole point in martial arts is to defend yourself if you are on the street, or you are attacked. So this is a good way to do it in a very good environment, and
Yes.
also for a good cause. Because
Hmm.
when real life comes and you never had any combat or training experience like in real life, it's going to be hard to switch on and go into that battle mindset. So
Yes. It's true.
you
You're
understand?
right. You're 100%. You're 100% right on that. So there, yeah, that's the beauty of martial arts anywhere. There's so many life lessons inside the studio that goes
Yes.
outside the studio, way beyond what your ever training ever was. I agree with that 1,000%. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, I think that, uh, you
Yes.
know, uh, matter of fact, I look forward to seeing how we can further this along for you now at this point and see what we can do. We'll talk to the guys, and after this podcast, you'll be
Yes.
able to promote this throughout onto your social media and everybody else's, and we can talk a little bit more off camera about, okay, what's our next move, and we'll keep everybody abreast of where we're moving. Sound
Oh
good?
yes, yes, definitely.
All
I
right.
just want this event and everyone who studied martial arts or put a lot of time and work, blood, sweat, and tears into something to be able to join this event for a higher cause. One, like I said, to experience growth within yourself and also to do something outside of yourself. Because basically, when you're training, it's all about you. And when you're punching a bag, you're thinking, hey, I hit harder, I'm faster. So you think about yourself all of the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that's natural for people to do. Like even bodybuilders, they think, hey, my arm's bigger, I'm stronger. In this case, you're just giving something outside of yourself, and I think is great.
Yeah, that's great. I think those are good. Those are good things to end on, and we
Yes,
will we'll maybe what we'll do is after the event we'll do another podcast, and we'll talk about what lessons were learned from there. Sound good?
absolutely,
That's good.
absolutely.
All
Yes,
right. Well, this
and
I enjoyed this today, Cause we're approaching an hour now, and I think that was a good way to end on that note. I look forward to this kumite. We'll keep everything out here for people, and out
yes,
on my platform, and you guys share it out there, and off camera we'll get everything ready, and we'll start promoting. Sound good?
yes, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Cox, for
All
everything
right.
too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Have an awesome day, bud.